Hi there, everyone. Welcome once again to the shed. Week 7. Can you believe that? 7 weeks we've been meeting like this. And I'd like to start off actually by asking if anyone knows what the heck's happened to my blunnies. Do you know what blunnies are? My boots. Blundstones are Aussie boots. They're kind of working footwear, really, a bit like Doc Martens, but like Doc's, blunnies have become very fashionable. And they're great. I love them. I've had several pairs that I buy when we're visiting our son and the rest of the Tomo family down under. But when I went for our walk this week, look what happened to them. The soles just started falling apart. The further I walked, the more of my soul I was leaving behind me, as it were. Honestly, what is the world coming to? If anyone has an answer to the mystery of blunny rot, well, I'd like to hear from you. Meanwhile, the missus says that she's oppressed by vegetables. In an effort to avoid going to supermarkets, we've been getting stuff delivered from a local farm shop, which is fantastic. And we're really very happy with the quality of the food we've been getting, including fruit and veg boxes. The trouble is, we can't get through the ruddy vegetables. It's getting well nigh impossible, really, to get into the fridge or even the spare room where we're having to store stuff. I'll be honest, I'm spending a lot of time down here in the shed doing stuff, really important stuff. So Pat's been taking on a lot of the cooking, but she's just about running out of ideas, despite her immense soup-making capacity. But I reckon the thing that haunts us all more seriously is that bloody daily list of people who've died due to COVID-19 that we see if we're watching the news day in, day out. It's scary, but it's also haunting when you think about all those people and all their loved ones. So we're going to begin this week by lighting a candle again, this time for the bereaved, and not just the coronavirus victims, but all the other bereaved people whose losses get lost in the statistics of what's happening with the virus. Me and Pat are especially lighting a candle this week for our friend Maurice Smith, who died this week of an unrelated illness, so far as I know. He's age 93. And in the end, he was someone who just couldn't really stomach church. He was one of the early house church leaders. I've known him for so many years. But despite his kind of disaffection with church, he instilled something of God's grace in me that has shaped who I am over the years. And we also think about his lovely Eileen, still with us in the land of the living, but deep into dementia. So, look, we're going to light a candle now for all those people, known or unknown. Maybe you want to light it for yourself, really. People who are struggling one way or another with all the loss at this distressing time. So if you've got a candle, I'd invite you just to take it to hand now, and we'll light a candle together and just stay for a few moments in silent prayer or thought for all those people who are feeling a bit lost in a mass of statistics right now because they've lost their loved ones. It's a funny old world we're living in, isn't it? This lockdown world. I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest. I guess, like most people, I find it completely paradoxical. I rebel against it. Something deep inside me rebels. I want to see people that I love face to face, and I want to hug them. I want to browse second-hand bookshops. I want to jump on a tube, go to church even, drive Pat to the seaside. She loves the sea. I'm looking forward to holding soul space in a pub again, and get a pint of draft ale, all that kind of stuff. I long for that, and for so much more. But then I also feel strangely attached to this intimate space, just me and Pat, and our daily walks, and all the other stuff that we're getting up to. Wandering down the garden to this shed, I'm really enjoying that, which really has become a friend for me, where I can think and write and talk to hundreds of people who are all waiting here for me. Thank you. It's weird, isn't it? This week I talked to millions of people, literally millions, from this place here, courtesy of the BBC on Pause for Thought. I also had a lovely encounter with 30 or so people in Croydon via Zoom, which was sadly beset by gremlins, but lovely all the same. I gave a sermon in St Philip's Church in Vancouver this morning, actually. And now I'm talking to all of you again without leaving this little place where we're holed up in Somerset. We thought we were coming for a break, and then the lockdown happened. And in the midst of this, I've been thinking about this amazing thing that Thomas Merton said. You know Thomas Merton? He was this fabulously inspiring Trappist monk who died in the mid-1960s, but left behind a spectacular legacy of writings in which he marries together this wonderful gift of contemplation with the courage to live in the real world. He was a monk, a scholar, a poet, a mystic, and a social activist. Anyway, he once said this. He said, "It is essential to experience all the times and moods of one good place." It's essential to experience all the times and moods of one good place. What a great thing. I love that. It feels so relevant right now, doesn't it? When we're mostly pinned down in one place. And I wonder how you're feeling about it, that one place. Hopefully you feel it's some kind of refuge, but my guess is that you have similar ambivalent feelings to me. We've all got favourite places, haven't we? Maybe somewhere that we like to go on holiday, or a place where we enjoy walking on a day off. Happy places, maybe also sad places, but they bring back happy, tearful memories. Our grandma's house, or where we grew up, I don't know. One of my all-time favourite places is a cottage in Yorkshire. If you've read my books, you'll know about this place. For 30 years or so, we rented this ramshackle old house as a hidey hole for a peppercorn rent. I think it cost us around £400 a year. We paid more in local council tax, actually. The cottage sat a mile from the nearest road with a dodgy water supply, no electricity, and certainly no satellite dish or Wi-Fi, no telephone signal either for that matter. And it housed 400 years of memories, as well as lots of spiders and other small creatures. It really wasn't for everyone. When our friend Stuart, a Royal Marine chaplain at the time, now the rector of the church in Vancouver where I preach today, when he asked me to lead him on a spiritual retreat, we agreed that the cottage was the perfect place to spend the week thinking, talking and praying. Pat came along too. She'd never miss a trip to the cottage, and she's got a lot of wise thoughts too, my wife. So we retreated up and down the valley each day with the dogs, and we retreated to the pub every evening for food and sustenance. Retreating's thirsty stuff, you know. And we spent hours talking and reflecting and gazing at the hillside opposite. We prayed and we kept silence in front of the fire. We also played the odd hand of cards while sipping port, communion for the soul. And on our last day, after Stuart's wife Laura joined us, we decided before going to the pub to say evening prayers outside. It had been a lovely crisp autumn day, and we'd had a fire outdoors all afternoon, as we often did. By 5:45 p.m, it was already dark, but still quite mild. So we huddled around the fire with just about enough glow to read our prayer books. As we prayed, two tawny owls called to each other across the valley repeatedly. and a delightfully slender quarter moon just peeped up over the hill opposite, not bright enough to obliterate the gradual appearance of the Milky Way overhead. It was one of those cherished moments when you feel completely at one with everything and so totally alive. Pat and I visited the cottage in every season, experienced every weather condition Yorkshire has to offer, and we loved every moment. We've sat silently in the living room until dusk turned to darkness, with only the fire to give us light. We celebrated our daughter Jenny's 18th birthday there, spent 2 weekends with 21 people from Holy Joe's crowded into the 4 large bedrooms. I frightened myself stupid listening to weird sounds in the middle of the night when I literally couldn't see my hand in front of my face and Pat was fast asleep. She's a lot better in the dark than me. I've lain on the frosty earth outside the house, gazing upward, boggled by the vast luminosity of the Milky Way. We once arrived at the cottage on Boxing Day to find the water tank had sprung a leak and the living room was drenched. It is essential, Thomas Merton says, it is essential to experience all the times and moods of one good place. But you know, a good place doesn't have to be a weird cottage up in Yorkshire or, I don't know, the Abbey at Iona or some other romantic or holy place of pilgrimage. It can be anywhere. It can be right here, there, where you are, where we're banged up avoiding the coronavirus. Actually, the truly good place, the place that is so very important, is the place where we are now, wherever that is. It's incredible how many hours we can spend just wishing that we were somewhere else instead of being here, which is where we are, he said with great profundity. This is where we're alive right now. It's the only bit of life that we can be completely sure that we have. So I think we should make sure that we really live here, that we really do live here. I mean, if I look around this shed, there are lots of times and moods here, mediated by the stuff I'm surrounded by. I've got this wonderful picture, which you'll recognise from How to Be a Bad Christian, that hangs on the wall, just taking it down, which was drawn by our very dear friend Rob, who did all the illustrations in my books. I've got this, which usually sits opposite me over there. It's a picture of Johnny Cash. I had it behind here, but Pat said I'd frighten everybody if I had this grimacing looking face behind me. But I love it. I love this, the whole Johnny Cash thing altogether. I've got this lovely picture of our daughter Jenny and our grandson Jude, who is now 6'2", and there's all these books too, loads of them. I mean, look at this one here by Hans Kung, Does God Exist? It's got like, I don't know, nearly 900 pages. When I first brought this home, Pat said to me, is that a yes then? And early on in our time at St Luke's, I had the incredible privilege and pleasure of having Hans Kung come around to the vicarage for dinner. I won't tell you the story. It was amazing how it came about. And we had dinner with this man who's, I think he's very much her professor. You know, I don't think he goes to family homes for dinner very often. And so when we just before he arrived, Pat said, so can I ask him? So I said, oh, I'm not sure about that. So anyway, after dinner, he offered to sign all of this whole row of books here, actually, which are all written by him. And so when it came to this one, sure enough, Pat said, so is that a yes, Hans? And I was a bit worried as I watched his sort of craggy face looking back, and then a great big grin came over and he said, yes, now read it. To which my contrary wife said, well, I don't need to now, do I? You've told me the answer. So there's there are loads of things here, but I reckon it wouldn't be so different where you are in your place. You're surrounded, I'm sure, by times and moods too. They don't have to be exceptional, just ordinary times and moods are good. When they're taken away from you, you know, it's the ordinary things I've found that you really miss. So it's good, well, essential actually, to really experience the presence of your ordinary things and ordinary everyday events, the people who are ordinarily filling your life. Instead of constantly transporting ourselves away from where we are with the TV and the internet, which I enjoy as much as anyone, why not just spend a bit of time simply being where we are? Look around, feel the times and moods, be grateful for place, for breath, for people who help compose the rich tapestry of who we are. Now, this may be a new kind of ordinary life that we're living at the moment, which we neither sought nor wanted, but for the present, this is it. It is our ordinary life. And I always like to say that it's the ordinary where God is. We sometimes want to find God in something extraordinary, some extraordinary spiritual experience, or go to some special place or whatever. But actually, I think that where God is mostly is in the ordinary, not somewhere else, but here in the ordinary stuff. This is where God lives, where we find God once we pause long enough to realize it. And in a way, that's kind of the whole message of what the Eucharist is about, really. The fact that it's ordinary bread, ordinary wine. You know, I often used to remind people at St. Luke's that Pat brought the bread that we're going to share in communion from Morrison's. It's just ordinary bread, ordinary wine. But that's the whole point of a sacrament. It is the fact that God inhabits the ordinary stuff. And once we wake up to that reality, then we can begin to have real communion. So if you've got some bread and wine or whatever there, I think you know by now what I've got here. Just pour a little bit. If you've got whatever you've got, then we're going to just share in a few moments of communion. And as I've said these last weeks, this is not a time to stand by ceremony. This is just us in my little shed here, acknowledging the fact that we've been plunged into this communal experience, which is sometimes deeply traumatic. I've had a couple of bad days this week, I'll be honest with you, when I've felt sort of quite fearful and unhappy. When you suddenly start kind of, reading every little symptom in your body and wondering what it is you've touched that's come into the house, or all this stupid nonsense that, my God, it would be just so brilliant to get rid of. So we come here bringing whatever it is that we're experiencing into this communal experience, which we're sharing also with people around the country, around the globe, believers and non-believers, atheists, agnostics, Muslims, Buddhists, whoever. It's a great leveler that reminds us that what really unites us more than all of these other things is a common humanity. And the further we get away from that basic truth, I think the further we get away from what is the heart, the true heart of religion. So if you'd like to say the words in white after me. Dear friends, the God of love is with you. Lift up your hearts. Let us give thanks to the giver of life. And I'd like to say these words together with me. Holy loving God, mystery of the universe, who cannot ever truly be named, heaven and earth are filled with your wonder. Save us, we pray, from small minds and mean spirits, and fill us instead with passion for kindness and justice. We remember the night before Jesus died, when he took bread, gave thanks for everything he had. He broke the bread and shared it with his friends, asking them to remember his full surrender to the spirit of life and love, and his enduring love for each of them. We also give thanks for 10,000 demonstrations of Christly love in our world every moment of every day right now. Nurses and doctors and key workers labouring all hours, putting their lives at risk during this pandemic. This too is my body. This is my blood. Volunteers giving time to help and support strangers, neighbours, and especially the vulnerable. This too is my body. This is my blood. Mothers, fathers, and others making daily sacrifices in caring for their families and friends, juggling work, domestic life, and the education of children. This too is my body. This is my blood. And so as we eat this bread and drink this cup, we proclaim Christ's death and resurrection, reenacted in our world 1,000,000 times each day in magnificent and routine expressions of outpoured love. So come, life-giving Spirit of God, brood over these gifts of bread and wine as they become part of us. May we become part of the great movement to bring love into our world. Amen. We join together in these words of the Lord's Prayer from the New Zealand Prayer Book. Eternal Spirit, Earth Maker, Pain Bearer, Life Giver, Source of all that is and that shall be, Father and Mother of us all, loving God in whom is heaven. The hallowing of your name echo through the universe. The way of your justice be followed by the peoples of the world. Your heavenly will be done by all created beings. Your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come on earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. In the hurts that we absorb from one another, forgive us. In times of temptation and test, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen. And so I invite you, friends, to take whatever bread it is that you have. I confess I have a Ritz cracker. And receive this gift as a token and symbol of God's love for you and the world. Amen. And take the wine or the cup of tea or the malt whiskey or whatever it is that you have as a symbol of the life that we share in common, and also of God's life poured out for the world in Christ. Amen. Now I invite you to join with me in the words of the Serenity prayer, which I rewrote for this time. We say together, God grant me the serenity to live fully and generously through circumstances I cannot control. Hope to keep on imagining better times for myself and the world, and courage to change what I can instead of simply leaving it to others. Amen. And now the blessing of God, the eternal good will of God, the shalom and salam of God, the wildness and warmth of God be among us and between us now and always. And the blessing of God, Creator, Liberator and Sustainer, be with us now and always. Amen. Well, there it is. Thanks for joining me once again here in the shed. And I hope you have a good week. And we'll meet again very soon, hopefully. So here's to you. God bless. Amen.